Okay, so we're back with part 3 of the Trinity that I've been talking about, the whole power control structure that some people would call the matrix, I guess, that rules over us. And so, yeah, here we go straight. Just a quick recap of the metaphysical Trinity that had to be created first. So that's the mental construct of there being some external authority, all wise, all knowing, all seeing, I don't know, metaphysical being. That we've been coached into believing exists. And so, so if you're religious in that sense of, believing these are actual facts, like I said, this is going to highly likely bring up some serious resistance in you. So anyway, so if you still want to persist, I'm going to show you the link that it has to this, to money. All right, so first you have to create the idea there's a superior, inferior. And that's what this Trinity does. It creates that there is a superior being and the rest of us are inferior. That's why you always hear all those religious texts always talking about how we've got sin and we're never good enough, etc., etc. We were born as sinners, as they say. So you want some serious confusion, you go give a sentient being with a consciousness the belief that they're a permanent sinner. And you're going to get some serious confusion. I did cover that in the previous one. So now I want to move on just quickly to the next we've already covered, just to sort of speed through it. So after that, you have the physical Trinity. So first the metaphysical, then that creates the physical Trinity. So just kind of move some slides out of the way so I can see it. Okay, move that one out of the way. And here we go, I can see it now. So that was the Vatican, London, and Washington. So just a quick recap. This is the center, the thought, right? The control structure. It's all a construct in the mind. Then it needed to create the motivator. So the motivator was the money creation. So that's the City of London. That's the financial center that funds the whole thing. And then you have to have the physical, which is Washington, which did the military part, right? So that's enforcement. It's not going to happen without the enforcement, right? So thoughts, emotions, actions. So we went over that. Let me bring up the next slide that I need. Where's my new share? And then you've got the banking trust Trinity. So that's what happens in our courts. So that's what was exported from the City of London. They created that for the rest of us. So this is this system of there being an executor, which is somebody who sits on the bench. And then you've got a creditor, the living. So that's when they created the private, a ledger, I guess. There's a private side of the trust, and then there's the public, that's the dead. And we're all this on this side, and we're never allowed to be this. So that's another game that they play to control us, part of the slavery structure. Just running over this quickly again. And then we're going to go into how it actually works on a day-to-day basis, right? So I was talking earlier about work and what that does. So there's a trinity of dependence that got created, right? So the whole idea that we could be self-sufficient, that can't work. It needs to make us dependent. So then what they did is created this idea of economics, So with that, you can't do everything for yourself. That's not okay. You need to have everything specialized, right? So you have one role that you do and someone else does another role, et cetera, et cetera. So we all rely on each other. And so then you need to have a system of exchange, which was the whole currency system. And so what the currency system does is at first you need to go in with the promise that you're going to get something in return for your labor. So that's your motivator, right? So the currency here, that's the promise, right, that you're going to get it. But first, before you even get any of that, you need to put in the action. So it happens in reverse. The action has to come first. And that's your stimulator, the emotions. So the motivator, emotions are emotion, a motivator, and the currency is the motivator. So you're emotionally attached to this currency you're going to get because you're dependent on it to get your needs met, right? It's a strategy for you to meet your basic everyday needs for survival. So, because you're not capable of generating all that for yourself, you are required to put in specific labor in order to get a system of exchange. So then you can get this currency, then you can use that to exchange for other requirements you have. And then after that comes the accounting. So that's the thought. So the accounting is how much your labor is considered, how much value is attributed to your labor. and that's an accounting structure that's attributed to that. So you do the action, you're motivated by this, and then somebody gets to decide how much that's worth in the accounting sphere. And so that's how it's done, the Trinity of Dependence. And that's why most of us live that really empty, shallow life, because we're dependent on this structure to get our most basicest needs met. Now, in order to do that, you also need to have you believe something, right? And that's the religion part. So we all talk about, the Bible and that kind of religious part, but the biggest religion is actually even more, oops, I hit the wrong button, is even more prevalent, this religion. So let me just define religion first. From the Latin verbage religare, to tie back, to hold back, to thwart from forward progress, to bind. A system of control based in unchallenged dogmatic belief which holds back the progress of consciousness. So what am I talking about? What is the religion I'm speaking of? So it's not the old metaphysical one, it's another one. So let me see if I can find the slide and we'll expose it. So I've found it. So I'm going to go into the word money, and this is what real money means. So it comes from two words, mono and I. Mono means singular or one. So it means one I, and one I is the actual knowledge of one singular truth. So what is that knowledge? That's the singular truth of natural law, that we are bound to it as we exist in nature. So we are bound to the conditions that come with nature. And if you understand that, if you have knowledge of that, then you will live in peaceful, harmonious coexistence. But if you don't, then you usually get the opposite. So I'm just going to show you what happens when you don't have the knowledge, if you are living outside of it. Living in opposition to that one singular truth, that is the knowledge of natural law, then this is what happens. It leads to control, enslavement, war, evolutionary stagnation, and we're right at the brink of that right now, actually, it's extinction. So we've been thinking that, war and all these other things are just part of who we are. No, it's the actual absence of our knowledge of natural law, which has been obstructed from us on purpose. Because we don't have that access to that knowledge, then this is how we behave. So this is because we're in that permanent state of confusion. Only those who go in that permanent state of confusion can have a control structure, what's called, what I said earlier in the previous one. Now I've forgotten the term. I'm hoping it'll come back to me. Structural violence, that's the word I was after. Yep, so anything to do with control is a part of structural violence. It's how violence is structured. It's a deliberate, premeditated control structure. And violence, when I mean violence, I don't just mean physical violence, I mean to violate every aspect of one's integrity. And then when that's happened, then you can become a good slave, and then you start actually fighting and hurting each other and being part of someone else's domination structure, which requires you to go to war with one another. And so we don't actually evolve, we stay stuck. And eventually this is where we end up. And we're obviously at that part of our evolution, if you want to call it that. I don't even know if that's the right word for it. But we're right here on this doorstep right now. And that's because, like I said, we don't have access to this knowledge of natural law. So we haven't accepted, like Mark Passio says. So this is another one of his slides that I've taken from him. I hope you're okay with that, Mark. It says that man's greatest fear is that there can only be one singular solitary truth, and it's universal. So, until we can accept that, we're constantly going to live like this. And that's what's been happening for these thousands and thousands of years. So we have the evidence, we just need to be able to look and see it for what it is. So now let me connect it up to the whole money system. You can see there's that picture of the eye that just symbolizes the one eye. That's the eye of knowledge, the pineal gland. So people talk about the calcification of the pineal gland. Well, I'm going to talk about that it's calcified not with the addition of what's that stuff, fluoride in our water, but it's actually done through the mental realm. So we're going to show how that could be possible. Just let me bring up this other slide. Here we go. This is the world's biggest religion that we're looking at right now. And that's the one of the fake money, the currency. That's the world's biggest religion because we're all hooked on it. So currency, the fake money is the currency, the one world religion. It's a resistor to the acceptance that there is only one singular truth. You think about that, how they say money is selling your soul, sell your soul for money. Well, if somebody doesn't have access to that, there is one singular truth, which I showed you earlier about natural law, will always live in this chaotic way. So the purpose of currency is the containment of knowledge. Symbology for the containment of knowledge is the eye in the prison. Remember how I showed you this one earlier? The eye in the prison. Well, a lot of people think this is the all-seeing eye, control. Well, it's kind of is, but the true nature of it is showing us how it's contained, that knowledge is contained within a control structure. That's what it's actually showing you. And that's how you get people to be enslaved. It's not so much the all-seeing eye that you're being watched, it's the containment of knowledge. Yeah, that someone gets to set the limits and the parameters of what you get to know. And if someone's getting to do that, then they are your slave master. So that's what that's more likely to be saying than the whole old classic that it's just you being under surveillance. So that's how the money part works. It's that belief system that they get you to actually fall into, that you are required and your value and worth is dependent on this money. That is how you contribute, is how much you make and what you can access with it. Where all these things don't exist in nature, right? We can access all these things, we don't require it, because remember, when we go to work, we first do the labor. The money part comes after. We are motivated because we believe this money is going to, help us get our needs met, but it's really just a strategy. So money itself is not so much the problem, because that's just neutral. It's how it's appropriated. And this fake money is appropriated as a control structure. Yeah, so we are dependent. So it's like I said in that Matrix quote. Remember, I highlighted a really important phrase in there. So hopelessly dependent on the system. Yeah. So that's that limited knowledge that we have that makes us dependent and hopelessly on the system. So hopefully when I come back, because I'm always going over time more than I like to, I'll start getting into some things about solutions and the Trinity that actually offers us liberty. All right, that'll do this time.